After learning that his father is dying, Karate Master Mr. Miyagi, like home, like so, returns home to Okinawa, bringing his protege Daniel with him. In Japan, Mr. Miyagi is surprised to discover that his old sweetheart Yukie has remained single. Meanwhile, Daniel was attracted to Yukie's niece Kumiko. But romance must be put on hold when Daniel and Miyagi deal with local bullies in Long Harbor grudges. Now, why does that sound familiar? What's good, grasshoppers? Welcome to the Dojo Reel by Sterling on Cinemas. I am your master, Sterling Still. And today, this is my review on the second installment of the Karate Kid series, Karate Kid Part 2. Before I begin, if you are new to this channel, don't you forget to smash that bell before you enter the academy, before you enter the Cobra Kai Academy. Whether you're on YouTube or Instagram, like if you're on YouTube or Instagram, as well as share and comment on whatever you have to say. And if you do that, guess what? You're the best around. There's nobody else like you. For those of you that were there during my review on the first Karate Kid, I said that the original Karate Kid conveyed a nuanced concept of its time during the 80s, the passionate essence of karate. It's a film that helps even the general audience members of the 80s distinct and discern kung fu from karate. Furthermore, the way the movie ends naturally doesn't really need a sequel because it was so solid, even if the fight scenes weren't that believable. The Karate Kid Part 2 conjures a similar plot line that precedes the 2010 film by having the titular Karate Kid go to Asia, and the reason for being there is not the same. This sequel has no intention for existing, but I feel like they were trying to focus more on how tight Daniel and Mr. Miyagi are since things ended well in the last film. This is why Daniel insisted on going with him and was not forced to enter a land he was not interested in seeing, just like a certain version of Daniel from Detroit and not Jersey. This is the only new idea the sequel comes up with, and everything else that is new follows up on that one thing that is different. To repeat, the sequel hits some of the same structural beats as its predecessor, but it just makes the premise and the setting feel authentic by placing it in China itself. Short answer, Karate Kid Part 2 is just an inferior version of the 2010 movie. That's all. But what we see the protagonist doing is nothing new, but it focuses a little more on Mr. Miyagi. We essentially witness some identical roles being filled in by other characters, like the role of William Zabka's, I don't know if I said that right, his character, Johnny Lawrence, and his dojo squad being filled in by Chozen, Toguchi, and Elizabeth Chu's Allie being pushed over by the Good Doctor's Tamlyn Tomita, who plays Kumiko. So now, real quick, if you're familiar with the Good Doctor, I hope you are loving the show just as much as I am. But if you have never seen the Good Doctor, I recommend you adding that to your binge list this Christmas because it is an amazing, captivating show. The 5th season just got into its winter finale, so just want to point that out there. Anyway, the continuation of the romance that Daniel had with Allie seemed like it was going nowhere. Somewhere. I mean, of course it was going somewhere. Why I would say nowhere? It was going somewhere. But then he suddenly just gets a new love interest. I mean, you leave the competition with the second place trophy, if I'm not wrong. Second place, first place, whatever. He got out of there with a trophy. It seemed like you and Allie were getting close. The spark was starting to light somewhere, but someone seemed to cut off the wick right before the dynamite exploded. And now you found yourself a new wick, and you're trying to light the fire on this new wick, and you got to kind of refuse it again. I don't know. To fuse it up again. But I'm just saying, it never made sense how he was so close to Allie, and then suddenly you go to Kumiko. I mean, Kumiko is very attractive and all, But I think if you spend so much time with one girl, wouldn't you want to stick with that person? But this is one of the reasons as to why this sequel is just unnecessary. Rotten Tomatoes gives The Karate Kid Part 2 a 44% recommendation. The Karate Kid Part 2 tries to find more than one way to build upon the previous film, but the result is a very much step down, while somewhat of a lesser aesthetic of what the remake would give eventually. So The Karate Kid Part 2, I say, deserves just a basic okay in the middle, a 6.5, just a basic D. This is essentially, I did say, if I hadn't mentioned this before, like I said, I've explained how SOs work. But in the 60s side of the spectrum is my take on an okay. If it's under 60, that just means it's not likable. So I will give it a 6.5 out of 10. But I hope you enjoyed that review on Karate Kid Part 2. If you have a different opinion, it's all good. I know even if whether you were born in the 80s, whether you're, I don't know the name of that generation that was born in the 80s, even though the 80s and the 90s are the greatest generation of all time, with all due respect to my generation who's got it all convenient. But if you have a franchise like Karate Kid that you cherish to your heart's content, I guess. I mean, you love it. But if you don't, you don't. I can understand. But just some things about this movie were a step down from the first film. Even though I said the first film, the only thing I didn't like is how the fight scenes were unbelievable. But all in all, I hope you enjoyed my take on the sequel, and I'll see you guys next time.